Welcome, everybody. Welcome. It's so wonderful that so many of you are joining us today. While people trickle in, I'm just going to offer some brief instructions. Please check the language setting. It's the globe icon at the bottom of your screen and select the appropriate language. Even if you do not want translation, please select English. Sometimes if you do not, the language is garbled. Por favor, verifique la configuración del idioma, el icono de globo en la parte inferior de la pantalla y seleccione el idioma apropiado, español si quiere traducción. While we wait, I'd like to invite you to visit the project website. This will be up for the duration of the project, and it'll be a central place to learn about the project, view some of the material from today, and take the survey that will launch today. Mientras esperamos, los invito a visitar la página de web del proyecto. Esta estará disponible durante la totalidad del proyecto y será un lugar central para aprender sobre el proyecto, ver imágenes del proyecto y participar en la encuesta. All right, so we are still watching people trickle in. And we'll just wait one more moment to have folks trickle in. All right, we still have a few people trickling in. We'll wait another moment. All right, great. I think we're ready to get started. Again, welcome to everybody. Thank you for spending your evening with us on such a beautiful day. We have a lot to share with you, and we're really excited to share it with you. So let's get started. My name is Manuel Cordero. I'm the principal of Civic, a design consultancy. I live and work in Providence, and in fact, pre-pandemic, I walk through these spaces that we're talking about today on a daily basis. I'm an architect and a community planner, and I have a real interest in engaging residents in conversations about public spaces. So I'm excited to be here today. You're joining us for the second public meeting regarding the project to create a unified vision for the public spaces of Greater Kennedy Plaza, including Kennedy Plaza, the ice skating rink, Exchange Terrace, Memorial Boulevard tunnels, the Water Place Basin, and the Riverwalk. I believe that one of our roles as planners and designers is to boldly imagine a shared future while understanding and sharing the history of these places. For this reason, I want to acknowledge that the spaces we will discuss today occupy the traditional homelands of the Narragansett, and the impact of this project will extend to the homelands of other tribes, including the Pokanoket Wampanoags. They are the past, the present, and the future. They have occupied this land for hundreds of years. They are the first caretakers. This land is their land, and this project is proposed to take place on their land. With this acknowledgement, we commit ourselves to working to make this land and these spaces responsive to the needs of Indigenous people. This is the agenda for the evening. We'll start with opening from our Planning Director, Bonnie Nickerson, and a welcome by the Honorable Mayor Jorge Lorza. We will then provide you with some information about the project, both an overview of the project and details about project elements. And then around 6:45, we'll break out into community discussions. We'll have about half an hour in the breakout rooms where you have a chance to ask questions and discuss the project. And then we'll come right back out at around 7:15 to share out and for next steps. And with that, I'd like to introduce and invite the Director of Planning, Bonnie the Director of Planning, Bonnie Nickerson, to unmute herself and provide a welcome.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me, Manuel?
Yes.
Perfect. Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Manuel just told us that there are over 340 people registered for this meeting tonight, and so many of you have been able to join us. It's really, really exciting. Although I cannot see all of you, we're really happy that you could join us, so thank you for being here. Together with AirUp, the city started this project to develop a single cohesive vision for the next generation of the public spaces in the heart of Providence. And to quickly recap for those who are joining this conversation for the first time, as Manuel just told us, the project includes all of the downtown spaces that make up Greater Kennedy Plaza. So the Water Place Park, the Riverwalks, the skating rink, the plaza itself, and a new elevated connection to link these spaces together. We're just really, really thrilled today to reveal this bold new vision for our downtown. So tonight we'll be presenting the conceptual design plan, and we'll continue to refine this plan through the late spring, when we'll have much more detailed 30% design and engineering plans for each of these project elements. Since last November, we held our first public meeting. We've conducted about 20 local interviews with local organizations. And we've been getting input directly from residents through an online survey with over 1,300 responses so far. And through that time, we've heard really quite a lot about the way users experience these spaces from different vantage points. So from transit riders, families, teens, and young adults, those experiencing homelessness, office workers, really to better understand how the spaces are being used today, how they could be used in the future, what's missing, and what would draw you into the space. So we really centered our design around the input that we've heard and the user journeys that we've mapped out, and Manuel's going to tell us a whole lot more about that input. But that feedback really formed the basis for a holistic vision of a new public space that's designed for everyone and welcoming to all. This past year has really revealed the central role that public open space plays in the well-being of a community. And Providence is really so lucky and so blessed to have this incredible asset in our downtown network of public spaces. Building the highest quality public space for all of our community to enjoy is really what this project has been all about. We're investing in the future vitality and livability of our city. So our central gathering space in the heart of Providence will be a place of respite, of play, of beauty, a place to come together to protest, to celebrate, to enjoy performances, and be a place just to be and spend time outside all year round. So before the team walks us through the design, I wanted to mention the project cost and project phasing. We'll be breaking the project into multiple phases, and we'll begin phase 1 next year in 2020 by working in Kennedy Plaza. The total project cost is estimated at approximately $140 million. This is conceptual at this point. We're going to continue to refine this through the spring. We currently have $16 million allocated to the project and will be seeking additional funds. We think this project is very well positioned to take advantage of new federal priorities and funding for infrastructure, sustainability and resiliency, and multimodal transportation. And finally, I just wanted to note quickly that our team has been working closely with RIPTA and RIDOT to collaborate on their plans for multiple hubs in the downtown. Our plan is not dependent on theirs moving forward, but we'll continue to work in collaboration, but with the expressed commitment of reserving space for transit and enhancing the transit rider experience in Greater Kennedy Plaza. I just quickly would like to acknowledge, I believe the Council President is here. Welcome, Council President. Thank you for joining us. And now I'm going to turn things over to our Mayor, Mayor Jorge Elorza. Thanks so much for joining us, Mayor.
All right, well, it's an honor to be here with you, Bonnie, and with the rest of the team and so many members in our community. First of all, I want to say thank you to everybody who's tuning in and is participating in this conversation. You've been here in the past, you've been here today, and you'll be here in the future. We truly appreciate you just being so invested in. We appreciate you being invested to such an extent here in your city. You know, I come at this, of course, from the mayor perspective, but first and foremost, I come at this from the perspective of someone who was born and raised and lived virtually my entire life here in Providence. And growing in Providence on Cranston Street in the west end of the city, you know, my family and I, we would never come downtown. There really wasn't a place for us downtown. At least we didn't feel as though there was. You know, none of my parents were white collar workers and worked in the office buildings. And the only times that we came was when we either had to pay bills or, you know, we had to do something specific, maybe take a picture for a passport at the old bus station where the convention center now is. And so growing up here in Providence, then I began to spend some time downtown, but it was only when I came down for very specific thing. Went to the old areas to buy, you know, maybe I would go to, you know, a club after hours. And I noticed that that's the way that people used downtown after work hours. They would come downtown for something specific because they had reservations at a restaurant, they were catching a show, or it was something specific. Never ever was the plan, let's just meet downtown and we'll figure it out. It's only in my later adulthood that Providence downtown started to have that quality to it. With more residential, it became more of a neighborhood. With more restaurants and bars, it became more and more of a central meeting space. But it's not quite there because we don't have that central park, right? That center of the city that brings everyone together and that has amenities for families, folks throughout Providence and folks from outside of Providence to come and spend the entire. And that's what we want to create. We know we live in a moment right now where the forces that divide us seem to be as strong as they've ever been in any of our lifetimes. Well, how do we invest in public infrastructure so that it is the force that does the exact opposite, that it actually brings us together as a community and it reminds us on a constant basis that we're all intertwined and that we're all part of something much bigger than ourselves. That's the potential for this space. Now, the infrastructure that has been there, it needs significant work on its own. So doing nothing is not an option. But rather than just rebuild what's already there, let's build up our infrastructure for the needs of the 21st. Let's be bold and audacious in reimagining this space. And so we're really excited to have received your feedback to this point. I hope you will enjoy the renderings and the plans that we have for you at this point. I'm eager to hear your feedback and to make sure that we shape this and round this out into the greater Kennedy Plaza that we all want to see and that we can all be a part of. Thank you once again for participating in this, and I look forward to today's conversation.
Thank you, Mayor Elorza, for your time this evening and for your compelling vision of these spaces that has guided this work. I would like to now share with you an overview of the engagement so far. The engagement has been a central part of the work that we have done. As many of you might remember, the project kicked off in November of 2020, and before the design team put pencil to paper, we went out and quickly set up a public meeting to get feedback as we went through the process of discovery and imagination. Here we are now in March as we seek to imagine and test these ideas that the design team has developed. And then we'll be back in May to share with you the development of these concepts as driven and guided by your feedback. The engagement started with a simple prompt, which was imagine with us. At our first public meeting, 165 of you joined us for the conversation. We had a wide geographic distribution, and the biggest group you can see here, the 29%, was those who identified with the zip code of downtown. In the breakout rooms, we had a rich and nuanced set of conversations that provide us great insight into the project, both about the current use of these spaces, but also about the future state, how we might use these spaces in the future. We also subsequently launched a survey, and 675 of you responded and gave us thousands of responses, both to multiple choice, but also write-in questions. It was incredibly rich. You can see here that when asked about how you currently use these spaces, about 27% and 17%, the majority had to do with either transit or mobility, the way in which we kind of move through it as a hub. But when we asked how we wanted to use these spaces, again, we see that kind of 27%, there's a big desire to continue to use this space for buses, but there was a great desire to use it in a lot of other ways. And you can see here entertainment, learning, creating, playing, and meeting friends was another. Entertainment and meeting friends were second and third in the list. We also had other forms of engagement, including meeting with community organizations and interviews on the site. And I'd like to share just a little sampling of some of the conversations we had on the site.
My name is Sherry. I've been living here since 1979. I'm on my way home right now. People just laying around, people begging for money. All I do is, like I said, just catch the bus and go home.
I would not be down here if it wasn't for the COVID test, and then it just happened to be down here. It's not really easily accessible. There's not like great parking. I think the top priority would be resources for people in need, marginalized community, sex workers, because everyone comes through here. It's kind of confusing, especially if you don't have a phone, internet, you don't know where you might access these things. If there was like one little storefront or something that has all this information, you can just stop in there. That would be great.
Mi nombre es Dominicana de Ortiz. Yo vengo aquí a la plaza. Me gusta Plaza Kennedy para venir al parque. Me gusta su condición, está muy bonita. Cojo mi guagua para transportarme a mi trabajo, a las tiendas. Me gusta bastante. Me gusta aquí donde el parquecito. Me gusta también traer mi nietecito a patinar.
The rink is great. There are some things that could be improved, like a river, and it's almost like an adventure land. As you skate through this like river-shaped, curvy-shaped rink, there are like different attractions and different sites, like maybe like trees and like
where do you propose
fountains.
They put this? It sounds like a huge project.
Well, I think it's a big city. I think they can do it.
My name is Hector. I use the bus transit to get from my girl's house to my friend's house to work to my house, all over. I'll take my girl to the mall, or we'll walk Waterfire, that area. Kind of just enjoy the day. Art. Everybody should express their talents. Not just the festivals and the concerts, but I mean like people should be more open into themselves. I feel like if they open their mind more, they'll be able to view other people differently. The more I view the area, the more I want to see change. Like I've been here most of my life, so like I kind of seen how this place changed, and I can watch it change again.
My name is Sherry. I've been living here since 1979. I'm on my way home right now. People just laying around.
Sorry about that. All right. So having collected all of this wonderful information, we then set about to distill it and synthesize it and step into the process of design, understanding it through the lens of the community. These are some of the themes that we organized around. And again, I'll share with you some of the feedback that we collected through some of the quotes, but here it is organized into a set of themes. The theme of equity and access, not surprisingly, many of you called for the project to address existing inequities by designing spaces and amenities that were available to all. So the design team asked themselves, what if we put blank at the center of every decision we make about these spaces? What if we put youth? What if we put our Black, Latinx, and other communities of color? What if we put Indigenous people, transit riders, persons experiencing homelessness, families, elderly, people with disabilities, LGBTQ+. What if we put you at the center of discussions about public space? Transit and mobility was another big theme that we saw throughout both in the survey. And the theme was not just about the presence of the bus, although there was an interest in the presence of the bus, but also thinking about how to make these spaces friendly to those who walk and bike. So the team asked themselves, what if we redesigned our city center for the many ways in which we move? What if we gave priority to those who walk, bike, and take public transit? We heard you say that access to nature was an important theme, as well as the issue of climate change. So the team asked itself, what if we approach the impact of climate change with bold vision? We got a wonderful response from the public about what might happen on the site, including you asked for shelter and seating. We heard you ask for restrooms and for bottom-up programming, activities to activate the site. So we asked, what if we made a space that was welcoming for everybody? The theme of youth and playfulness came about. It's clear that we want spaces that are playful, both for our youth, but also for those young at heart. So we asked, what if we create spaces for all ages to play? And the theme of safety was important. And this extended from lighting across the site to shelter from the elements to feeling safe as we cross the site. So the design team strive to create safe and healthy spaces in their work. One of the ways in which this feedback and the community's quotes and feedback was used and synthesized and distilled was through a set of user journeys. These are not intended to be a comprehensive list of users, but just a sampling of the diversity of users that we understand both from observation, but from the information that we collected from the community. And those were used to kind of map the current gaps and issues on the site. And again, these are quotes from you, the public. Young people don't feel a connection. There's literally nothing here to do. So the design team thought about a future state that centered each of these user groups. And in this case, the sample that I'm showing you is of a teenager, centering the teenager's activity on the site as a way of entering into the design process. And with that, I will pause and transition over to Alban Bassuet. Alban is the project manager for ARIP, who is leading the design and implementation of this project.
Good evening, everyone. Can everyone see my screen? Yes, thank you. Just as a quick recap for those of you who weren't on the first community meeting, we are a designer, planner, and engineers working on city both in the US and abroad, which we aim to do with a human-centric approach. We are bringing 25 disciplines to this project, looking holistically at the revitalization of downtown Providence, with many of us working and living in Rhode Island. As Manuel detailed, the community outreach is very much at the heart of the inspiration, of our inspiration for the design and planning of the project. But we've also taken a good hard look at the existing infrastructure in Providence to see what could be improved to make the best investment for the city. And starting with Kennedy Plaza. Kennedy Plaza is a really incredible asset for the city, but not just the city, you could say also the country. It's a vast place for people to assemble, protest peacefully, come for a concert. A great place for people to access transit for many. And it's also a place to find social support for more marginalized communities or people in need. However, a big problem with Kennedy Plaza is the direct overlap between the bus, the cars, and pedestrian, which creates issues of safety for people crossing. There's been accidents, and there will be more accidents in the future if we don't solve this situation. The area is also generally unsafe. There's not much to do during the day or the night outside of events. And there's also kind of a lack of vegetation. The rink is a wonderful destination in Providence, very popular, many families and children going there. I take my daughters there very often. And it also sits very nicely in the landscape. It's a bit more intimate than Kennedy Plaza, the way it sits. It also has very good programming that attracts a lot of people in the summer, whether for sport activities or medium to small events. But the pipe of the refrigeration system are corroded, and the rink is going to need some significant investment for future renovation. It's also currently too small to accommodate both the bumper cars and the skates. Its shape is rectangular. It could be a bit more fun for the skater. It also gets really hot in the summer because it lacks shade. Now, the Riverwalk are also a wonderful asset for the city, and they get very popular during the water fire events. They have a nice atmosphere, more pleasant, quieter, romantic sometimes, and it has a kind of iconic quality in the city. But the problem with the Riverwalk is they flood relatively often, so almost once a month, and 3 times a year on storm events. So it's only going to get worse for the years to come. The walkways are also quite narrow, particularly for the large events or the water fire events taking place there. There's very restricted ADA accessibility throughout. There's not much to do during the day. It's not very safe at night. It's not very well connected to Kennedy Plaza. It's got poor sight lines, and on top of this, the wall that carried the riverwalks are in need of repair, with the metal piles behind the stoning to be corroded, which will need to be upgraded. This is the tunnel that currently leads you to the Riverwalk from Kennedy Plaza. So it's the same elevation as Kennedy Plaza, so it's quite useful for accessibility. And it's kind of a direct straight shot, and it contains some useful storage for the rink operation. However, it's very unsafe. There's a lot of negative behavior taking place there. It's also not very inviting. Not everybody knows about it. It's kind of hidden in a corner. And when looking at it, you don't have a clear view from end to end. Is it really the connection that we should be developing for the future? Maybe, maybe not. So after looking at all of some of those infrastructure elements together as a team, we started to formalize our thoughts on what could be done generally to the area. And we've kind of channeled all of our thinking into 3 big major moves, which I will summarize here, and then our team is going to go a bit more in detail into these. And our first big move is to rethink the pedestrian and transit on Kennedy Plaza. And for that, we plan to accommodate the bus stops that are recommended by the RIDOT plan to outside of Kennedy Plaza, so on Dorrance, Exchange Street, and Exchange Terrace. So keeping the one on Exchange Terrace that are already here, but creating a few more on Exchange Street. And by doing so, we hope to permanently close Washington Street and East Approach, and to also route the downtown uptown bus traffic on Fulton Street. So there will be no more traffic on Kennedy Plaza itself. Now, once this can be accomplished, we hope to regain all of that space for public activation and program. Our team is going to detail, but I'll just hit on a few of those. We're looking at, we call it a big shade structure near the courthouse to the east, which will host amenities for people in need, but also a performance stage for events, a cafe, fire pit, and other things. we're planning to move the rink from its current location to the center of Kennedy Plaza, make it bigger, better, more fun, like a riverine type shape with trees in between, an area for the bumper cars, which will turn in the summer into an interactive water feature for kids and families. And the old location of the rink, we are planning to turn into a space we call the free space for youth engagement, where we hope to see a whole range of burgeoning activities such as big boxing, dancing, impromptu events, basketball, volleyball, sport, and just relaxing as well. As part of this, well, I'll start here because there's a lot more to discuss. And then the third big move that we're proposing, which can break into two steps, is to not use the tunnel anymore to access the Riverwalk, but to create an elevated platform that will connect Exchange Terrace to Memorial Boulevard elevation, and to cross Memorial Boulevard, which we'll work with the city on to try to make easy and safe, and to access the Riverwalk from above as opposed to from underneath, and then to walk down to the level of the water. A bit like a mini Highland experience, if you wish. And then once that's accomplished, we will then plan for a modernization of the Riverwalks and to raise the elevation of the Riverwalk to be resilient up to 2100, which will require an elevation of about 80 inches from the current height of the Riverwalk. So that being said, we'll now hand over to ultra-modern and Stimson architects who are going to show you a bit more in detail what we're planning to do on some of the plans and renderings. I'll catch up with you at the end to play a little animation which kind of summarizes all of what's being presented to you this evening. So I'm going to stop sharing. Aaron and Yasmin, it's yours.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? So my name is Aaron Forrest. I'm from Ultramodern Architecture Office based here in Providence. And as Alvin mentioned, our first strategy is to make Kennedy Plaza transit and pedestrian friendly. So from its early days as the front yard of the train station until today, Kennedy Plaza has been really a prime connector for the city while also acting as the central gathering point for the people. This combination has always made this place, in our minds, at least inherently inclusive. We want to honor the dual legacy of this critical civic space that has always been a place for both transit and for people. So we began our process by asking, how can we build on this legacy to create a space of transit and communal gathering for the 21st century? So here we see Kennedy Plaza as it is today. It is an island surrounded by multiple lanes of traffic on all sides with very little in the way of amenities or retail. So it's not great for pedestrians or for transit riders. And critically, Washington Street is a barrier between the plaza and the parks right across the street. So the first step in our plan is to consolidate buses along Dorrance and Exchange Street in addition to their current location on Exchange Terrace. This move maintains transit as a central function of the plaza while improving the rider's experience by allowing safe and efficient connections, as well as more comfortable waiting areas alongside the parks. This then allows us to close Washington Street to traffic, creating a unified pedestrian and transit area that brings together the plaza and the parks for the first time. Major pedestrian improvements on Dorrance, Fulton, Exchange Street, and Exchange Terrace will allow safer, more fluid crossings in all directions to downtown, to Westminster Street, to College Hill, and to the Riverwalk. And there are many great examples of this, this kind of design that integrate pedestrians and transit safely and beautifully from all over the world. And because of its centrality to our city and to the statewide transit network, we really think that Kennedy Plaza is ripe for this kind of forward-thinking transformation. Our design also ties carefully to bicycle and pedestrian networks and includes consideration for parking, bike share, and ride share drop-off locations. So we're really building on the presence of transit in the plaza to integrate it with the many different ways that people move across the city today.
Hi, I'm Erin, first partner. I'm Yasmin Vobis, also with Ultramodern. And I'm going to talk about the second strategy. This first strategy really sets the table for the second, which is to create a human-centric civic center. And what do we mean by that is that it's a city center that is really focused on the experiences of people. And what does that mean in the 21st century? So we imagine, that the space would be inclusive and allow for many simultaneous voices and activities to unfold in the same public space. We also think that the 21st century civic center needs to be immersive by creating deep and meaningful experiences and reconnecting us to the broader landscapes and communities of Rhode Island. And also that the 21st century civic center would be active and lively, and that we think of it really as a kind of open field for the vibrant celebration of the everyday. We were very inspired by what we heard from all of you at the last community meeting. And as Manuel has pointed out, we received a lot of feedback during our engagement efforts, and we've been kind of synthesizing all of this information to directly inform our design process. And one of the first things that we did after the first community meeting was to take all of the ideas that people brought to the table and to lay them out on a big site map. This started to create a series of activity clusters that essentially map what people already do in Kennedy Plaza, but also what people want to do in the future. We also then distilled these activity clusters into a series of overlapping program areas, each organized around a different theme of public space. So each area would provide the space and support for the things that people want to be doing there. So this diagram, which came directly from all of the feedback in the outreach process, became the programmatic framework for the entire project. So using this as a starting point, we imagined Kennedy Plaza as a series of large open urban rooms, each with its own specific activation and sets of qualities. Similar to the gathering spaces of a house, we imagine these spaces as flexibly linked together. So that means they can be kind of understood individually, but they can also be combined into a larger cohesive public space for really big gatherings. And each of these rooms would be anchored by an element that is designed for people to enjoy. So a big shade canopy, a splash park, a welcome center, and a space for play. And now I'll kind of take you through these so we can kind of take a closer look at each one. So the first of these is the Welcome Center, which is situated right across from City Hall. We imagine this as a new front yard for the city. We're proposing to restore the historic trolley station to become the Welcome Center, which is a public presence for the Parks Department, RIPTA, and a city services information point. This area of the plaza is going to have very large, generous shade trees and benches that create a comfortable space for relaxing and just enjoying the city as well. The program for this Welcome Center is quite direct. It's a resource. It's a place to get information, to access city services, to use the bathroom, stow your bag, and even hop on the internet if you don't have a smartphone or laptop. On the other end of the plaza, the Big Shade is a generous open canopy structure that frames the eastern end of Kennedy Plaza. It provides basics like a cafe and restrooms, but more than that, it creates a big shade, shelter, and a warming area for all. In addition, it's home to vital social amenities for those in need. But also the big open roof can host farmers markets, gatherings, and concerts. And in fact, the large structure is designed to accommodate a large stage and has the infrastructure for big performances that can take over the full space of Kennedy Plaza. And again, I think that the program for this area is quite crucial. It creates a vision for what compassionate public space can be. And it tries to house all of this in a beautiful, lightweight, and enjoyable space where city life can unfold year round. In our proposal, the center of Kennedy Plaza is reimagined as the space of play for all ages, specifically water play in all of its forms. So we're imagining a space that transforms from a water feature in the summer to an ice rink in the winter. And in the summer, this interactive water feature will create a splash park where everyone in the city can come downtown and cool off. And the hope is that also this fun can extend into the night with dynamic lighting, as you see in this image. In the winter, the space will transform to host the newly expanded ice rink. And the ice rink will allow for just a really exciting skating experience on an ice river, which is kind of surrounded by these dramatic views of the Providence skyline. And given its generous size, there's also room for the ice in the ice rink for the popular ice bumper cars, which are quite popular even nowadays in the current location. In addition, some of the splash park nozzles could be used in the winter to create ice sculptures, which you see here in this image a little bit further back, as another kind of spectacle that would draw people to the plaza in the winter months. So the programming of this part of the plaza is intended to center play in the heart of Kennedy Plaza for people of all ages. It's flexible and can transform from day to night, but also from season to season. Now, Kennedy Plaza Free Space, which is in the location where the ice rink is currently located, is really a space that's aimed at teens, fostering a spirit of open-ended play and creative agency among the young people who are among the principal users of Kennedy Plaza today. And while we're designing the space with young people in mind, it's really meant to be open and available to anyone. Like the splash park and the rink, it centers a spirit of intergenerational play and agency throughout the plaza. In addition, we're also trying to just create a space that's more comfortable to be in with shading elements such as trees and overhanging and shade lighting grid as well. And so what we mean by free space in this area is that it's a space that's not only free to use, but it's also a space for the freedom of expression, a space where one is free to be oneself. The design currently includes basketball and volleyball courts and play and landscape elements that suggest activities, but do not necessarily prescribe them. In addition, a cafe will provide concessions and restrooms for this part of the park as well. Zooming back out, we're designing a series of elements that are distributed across the site as amenities and also to really unify the space. Most importantly, we're looking at vegetation throughout and benches as critical to creating a comfortable space for people to relax and enjoy year-round. And of course, we're also not forgetting about the other basic amenities that will make Kennedy Plaza a great place to spend time. So comfortable bus stops, access to food and water fountains, information, places to get warm in the wintertime, and of course, restrooms. A unified lighting design will improve safety and visibility at night while creating a unique atmosphere across the different areas of the site. The lighting will be energy efficient and programmable, allowing the lighting to be tuned to different events and times of the year. And as Providence continues to change, we're also asking how Kennedy Plaza can really reflect the voices and narratives of those who make the city home now and well into the future. So we want to build on the amazing contributions of our creative community and arts organizations to make Kennedy Plaza a space that puts those voices on equal footing with the historic monuments that are there today. So there really is this sense that no one should be left out of this space. We're also working hard to, with this in mind, we're working hard to integrate new public art throughout the space, including murals, sculpture, and digital media, along with the infrastructure to support the performing arts throughout. In the end, our goal is for the plaza to be as inclusive and as welcoming as possible. So in all aspects of the design, we're looking to make the connections that want to happen here. So between transit and pedestrians, between the parks and the plaza, and between the past and the future as well. And now I'm going to hand it over to Greg Tuzzolo from Stimson Landscape Architects to talk about the big third move in this project.
Thank you, Yasmin and Aaron. Good evening, everyone. My name is Greg Tuzzolo. I'm a landscape architect with Stimson. The third strategy that we'd like to discuss tonight is to modernize the riverwalks for the 21st century. Building on the important efforts previously discussed, our first priority is to ensure a pedestrian-friendly and accessible connection between the Riverwalk, Kennedy Plaza, and the greater downtown. Currently, the Riverwalk can be accessed via a series of tunnels that are both unsafe and not fully under city ownership. For the long term, we propose to replace the tunnels with a new connection stretching from Exchange Terrace to Memorial Boulevard. A fully accessible and vegetated pedestrian connection and a safe at-grade crossing of Memorial Boulevard, closely coordinated with adjacent private development and traffic improvements to create a permanent public walkway, reconnecting these two critical areas of the city. Once visitors safely cross Memorial Boulevard, they would arrive at a higher elevation than the current Riverwalk. This challenge creates an opportunity to respond to our next key consideration. Based on thorough modeling and study, we know that flooding and climate change will increasingly impact the Riverwalk over the coming decades, resulting in a gradual but significant rise in the elevation of the Woonasquatucket River, rising as much as 3 feet by 2050 and as much as 6 feet by 2080. In response, we are proposing to lift the Riverwalk out of the flood zone onto a system of elevated deck structures. We would close access to the existing pathways and bridge underpasses and connect all pathways to the street elevation. Lifting the walkways allows us to replace the existing pavement with lush native plantings designed to absorb and clean floodwaters and reintroduce native ecology to the river. This revegetation concept draws from the regional ecology of Rhode Island, which provides a template for locally indigenous plant communities and species selection, allowing us to restore a native riparian environment rich with biodiversity, habitat, improved microclimates, and year-round seasonal beauty. By reimagining the connection to Kennedy Plaza, confronting the future realities of climate change, and reintroducing native ecology to the river, this plan will modernize the Riverwalk for the next 100 years and reconnect the city via a circulation system that provides universal accessibility from downtown to the Capitol Center District. In the basin, a new elevated deck system would be perched above the existing Riverwalk pavement outside of the future flood zone. Terraced lawn seating wraps the basin, and a series of lower step seats allows for a more intimate vantage point of the water, creating a unified civic experience with generous seating, places to gather, and inviting an open social environment designed for all to enjoy the river and the many events that it will host. Farther downstream, a series of winding pathways rise and fall along the river's edge, connecting the Memorial Boulevard streetscape to the Riverwalk with viewing decks, widened sidewalks, and street tree plantings, creating a series of sinuous riverine walkways with a dynamic relationship to the river, and transforming the experience of the Riverwalk into an expression of Rhode Island's native riparian landscapes. Finally, Water Place Park will also be home to a new iconic water feature and fog feature. This unique sculptural element will use potable water to emit a beautiful and atmospheric fog, creating a canvas that can be illuminated with light or even fire to create an iconic and playful experience that celebrates Providence's unique history. Thank you.
Manuel, is there time for me to play the video?
Please do. Go ahead.
And just as a quick thing before I play it, just to note for the audience that we've been at this now since the beginning of November 2020. We've only produced up to 10% design, so a lot of what you're seeing today is preliminary in terms of its architectural development. There's got a lot to come in the weeks and months ahead of us until the end of our mission, which is around late May, early June. So I will play now a 3 to 4 minute animation that kind of sums up a lot of the element that we've presented today.
We are beginning the modernization of some of the downtown public spaces in Providence. It is a once-in-a-generation's opportunity to transform a main city plaza to be more inclusive, fun, supportive, and enjoyable. Let's begin with Kennedy Plaza. A reconfiguration of the motorized and pedestrian areas around Kennedy Plaza will help make the space work better for everyone. To avoid mixing pedestrians with the bus flow, the current bus stops will be relocated to the edges of Kennedy Plaza and Biltmore Park, thereby freeing the center of the plaza. We are planning a larger civic space by closing Washington Street and East approach to traffic and implementing pedestrian improvements on the surrounding streets. This will transform Kennedy Plaza, Burnside, and Biltmore Parks into a unified pedestrian zone. A new sheltered public space will house a cafe, performance stage, bathrooms, and social services for people experiencing homelessness. The new unified plaza will allow us to reclaim space for the public with amenities such as outdoor gathering spaces, food, retail, and infrastructure for events. We are planning to build a larger and more experiential rink at the center of Kennedy Plaza. The Sailors and Soldiers Monument will be relocated to make space for a new welcome center, which will provide more public amenities. In the summer, the ice rink transforms into an interactive splash park, inviting the public to play and cool off in the heart of our city. The current ice rink area will be reimagined as a dynamic space designed to attract teens and the young at heart with skating, sports, and spaces for personal expression. Another important move is to create a stronger connection to the Riverwalks. An elevated connector will provide a new way to see and experience the city and to reconnect Water Place Park to the rest of the neighborhoods. The current Riverwalks are also in great need of improvement due to the effects of climate change. The area floods regularly, and things are predicted to get worse over the years. The team is proposing to raise the level of the walkways to resist sea level rise at least until the year 2100. We are planning to build a new stage and upgraded seating for performances and water fire events. An iconic mist feature hovering the basin will be a symbol of Providence's revival, honoring its past and its bright future. The Riverwalk is imagined as a series of undulating walkways surrounded by native Rhode Island vegetation. This greater Kennedy Plaza will improve the connection with the urban trail networks and the Woonasquatucket River Greenway. People will be able to walk more easily from the train station to Kennedy Plaza, come by bike from Broadway, Broad Street, or College Hill, or use the new drop-off and parking areas. Lighting will be used to unify all parts of the site, making the area safer and more attractive at night, and create a festive atmosphere for events. By reclaiming these spaces, we hope to celebrate our diverse communities and their heritage, bring amenities for people in need, create a joyful public square and river walks, and build a better future for the next generations.
And this concludes our presentation from the design team, and hand over to Manuel.
All right, great. Thank you to Alban, Greg, Yasmin, and Aaron. I'm sure you got everybody excited. So we're going to go into community conversations, but I just need your attention for a couple of minutes, and I'm just going to share with you a couple of frameworks as we go into the conversation. So as we prepare to go in, just a couple of community agreements. This is probably familiar to those of you who were at the last meeting. We're just asking everybody to be present, listen to each other. There is a lot of interest in this, so there are a lot of people here. In a moment, I'll share with you that we are recording all forms of communication, so don't feel like you have to communicate things verbally. There's other ways of sharing your thoughts. Be generous, both by sharing and listening. Be patient with yourself and with others, and of course, be curious. In essence, approach the conversation in a constructive and collaborative way. I would like to introduce the amazing team of facilitators. There will be 6 breakout rooms, and each of our facilitator are members of our community who have similar beliefs in the power and importance of engagement and of civic spaces. So in the interest of time, I have listed their bios here on the slide for you to see. These are the second group. You will be assigned to one of these 6 groups. And again, there's a kind of random assignment. We designed the conversation around a shared whiteboard so that you can continue to look at the work while we have the discussion. Those of you who participated at our last meeting know that you can participate in a few different ways. I've highlighted these on the right. Participate in the chat, participate on the board, participate verbally. All forms of participation will be recorded and honored as part of the process. Please know that, again, there are many folks in the room, so if you have a lot to say, put it in the chat. Again, we are recording and honoring all of those forms of feedback. In a moment, you're going to receive an invite into one of the breakout rooms. We want to start with questions because we know that there are going to be a lot of questions. There's going to be members of the design team and the city in the room. We'll start by collecting many of the questions. The team will try to kind of group questions and answer a few together. If you feel like your question was not answered, do not worry. We are collecting all of them and posting a frequently asked questions document to the website afterward. Again, I'll share the website information with you at the end of the meeting. So with that, I will stop my share, and Lexi will send you breakout room invites, and you will be welcomed by your facilitators. Hello and welcome, everybody. Thank you. I hope you had as productive a conversation as we had. I think folks are probably transitioning over. Just a heads up that you may have to again select your language. Si necesita interpretación, por favor seleccione español en el icono de globo en la parte inferior de la pantalla. For those English speakers, it might also affect your audio, so just switch to English. So thank you all for participating. I'm going to do a quick round of debriefs. We're at 7:30, so if you don't mind sticking around for just a few more minutes, we're wrapping up, but I'd like to just have every one of the facilitators kind of share what they heard in each of the breakout rooms. And I'm just going to go by order. So if it's okay, I'm going to start with Christina Brown. Christina, if you'd like to unmute yourself and just offer us a brief overview of what you heard in your room.
Yeah, thank you, Manuel. We had a large group and a lot of interest in the design and different aspects of it. I think what I would bring back to the group is some concerns about the buses and social services aspect of it, how those would be handled and integrated throughout the site, as well as cost and maintenance. But overall, we had a great discussion. There was a lot of support for the water features, some questions about the mist ring. And that was what we had, a lot of information, a lot of great feedback.
Thank you, Christina. Next in room 2, the green room, MJ.
Hi, everyone. So our room, we discussed several really great ideas for future use and flexibility. The ability to have pop-up businesses of different sorts, maybe food and other services. There was a lot of concern and care in our group for pedestrians and transit riders and bicyclists, etc. Thinking about some of the spaces surrounding the site as well as the site itself, ensuring that streets are safe and there are calming measures for traffic that are connected to this zone. And more and more that I can't even quite get into, but those are some of the things we started to talk about. Thank you.
Thank you, MJ. Room 3, Sagri.
So it was a really good conversation. Just off the bat, we heard that people were really impressed with all the imagery and the ideas, and they recognized that it was ambitious. And there was curiosity about, what was the future with sort of funding and the sustainability of the ideas. There were a few opportunities recognized. One was to find a way to acknowledge and sort of recognize and give space to contributions made by sort of tribes or people native to this land. The other was to establish a connection between downtown and the Woonasquatucket River Greenway. The third thing that we talked a lot about was that the vibrancy and success of anything we do here really lies on the programming and opportunity for sort of everyday people and everyday activities as opposed to events and one-time activities. So there was a lot of interest around that. And I'm trying to think, and that's kind of, and we were sort of, there was an interest in exploring opinions of voices that have not been heard from yet. And so we captured that in both the chat and conversation. But overall, it was good. And, you can see that people are really taken with the possibility of this place.
Thank you, Sagri. In breakout room 4, Shay.
Hi, everyone. Good to see familiar faces and new faces as well. So my group, we had some really good conversation and a lot of questions, about missing pieces. There is a lot of excitement. Our group shared excitement about, having space for people to actually be downtown and spend time there, the bathrooms as amenities and things like that. A concern and just a flag to make sure that there are maintenance plans to make sure that spaces are clean and healthy for folks and that that's consistent, especially, if there are more trees out there, like the water spout park and all those things. Big flag up also, like some of the other conversations in the other rooms, especially Sagri's room too, about how to acknowledge Indigenous people and the Narragansett in these plans. Thoughts around what does public art mean also as well, and allocation of support there toward Indigenous artists and Indigenous people. Let me see. Some questions as well about other ways to be present in civic space about the RIDOT plan. So we address this is one of the places where we're capturing a lot of the information and concerns, but that, as residents will have more opportunity to continue to voice those concerns up. But a lot of conversation, a lot of question around those pieces. The other one that came up also was just making sure that all the stakeholders and people who use, downtown from all sectors are making sure that they're represented and that their voices are, represented in this plan. So that came up. Our group was like really, in favor and wanted to highlight that. Yeah, I mean, the rest of the was like stuff that also came up in MJ's group and Sagri's group.
Thank you, Shay. In room 5, we had Tracy.
Hi, folks. Yeah, we had a fantastic conversation in our room as well. We had general support and excitement about the plan, a lot of questions directed at Albin. So thank you for addressing a lot of direct questions ranging from the type of paving that would be favorable to the feedback and the groups that were reached out to create the plan. Even an invitation to have a public process with some of the office workers that surround the site. I feel like that is a process that and an event that we would all want to go to. So there's an opportunity to still check in with some folks if that's useful for the design group, which I imagine it is. And yeah, I mean, everything else that's been mentioned in the group for sure. Some of the concerns about really tangible amenities for the unhoused population as well came up for us. But yeah, we're all having a great, very similar group of concerns, group of exciting and encouraging people. Basically, we're going to be skating on that rink if it happens, so we're excited. But yeah, and we're obviously recording all of it. I get a little nervous going 5th, but I'll pass it on.
Thank you, Tracy. And my group, 6 is the last group. A great group. We started with a lot of questions, so thank you to Martina Haggerty for answering so many of the questions. The questions and concerns, some of them had to do with kind of pedestrians and kind of mobility on the site. There were a few questions about the bus berths and how many buses there were, also kind of moving between buses. There was interesting comment about kind of thinking about the connection all the way from Kennedy Plaza to the train station, so kind of building on that connection across Memorial. There was some conversation about safety across Memorial Boulevard, and an interesting conversation towards the end about prioritization, the question of there's a lot here, and how do we prioritize some of the fun stuff with some of the things that are just necessary and must happen. So with that, we are ready to wrap up. I'm just going to invite Martina just to say some closing words, and I'll share my screen to put up the project website. Again, just a reminder that we want you to continue to participate. So the project website is a place to see some of the work that we've presented today, a recording of the meeting, but also to take the survey. We invite you to take the survey and share it with others. Martina, would you like to close us out?
Sure. Thank you so much, Manuel, and everyone from the design team and all of the community members that contributed their time and thoughts to us tonight. Again, please visit the website. It's available. It was just up on the screen, or you can contact Jessica from our team with any questions you might have afterwards. And you'll be hearing from us in a few months again. And hopefully by that time, we'll have had a chance to incorporate a lot of your feedback that we'll be receiving from tonight and over the coming weeks. And we'll have about 30% plans at that point and a more defined phasing and cost analysis. So thanks again, everyone. Have a great night.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.